Welcome back to the JWJ podcast. It's your boy Shane. Our last episode, as y'all know, we couldn't beat the buzzer at the end of regulation. So, James, you thinking what I'm thinking?
Man, absolutely.
Overtime.
Overtime. Let's go.
Speaking of, let's see what happens. Man. Let's get to this next one. It's a big move, but only for like one team. And we're going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. They went out and they acquired Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz. They gave up Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, and Leandro Bolmaro, as well as a 2023, 2025, and 2027 first-round draft pick trio. All those picks are unprotected. So Utah basically picks up a few bags of assorted chips and trade bait, basically, with picks or, an opportunity to rebuild in Utah. But Minnesota brings in Rudy Gobert to pair with Karl Anthony Towns. So, James, Gobert to the Wolves, teaming up with Cat. What you got?
My word here, I feel is going to be pretty easy. I'm gonna go with questionable. And when I say questionable,
Damn it, I need a new word.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I questionable was my word. I'm gonna
no. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't even gotten to our explanation of the JWJ acronym yet, but that right there is an example of why we were destined to be best friends. But yeah, no, I question
person swag.
There it is, man. So questionable is what I'm going with. And it's not even from the Utah side, it's Minnesota. Now, I don't understand I mean, of course, Rudy Gobert, multi-time, defensive player of the year. He's clearly a force on the defensive end of the floor. He's never been a guy that you look to produce offensively. And in the meantime, you're pairing them around, you've managed to keep your core. You were able to hold on to, of course, Anthony Edwards, who is your cornerstone for the future. You just re-signed Karl Anthony Towns, which we'll get to that mess in a minute. And you also held on to, which I feel is a very underrated piece, in D'Angelo Russell. But they're about to, in my opinion, they're about to fall into the same problem that Boston just ran into, because you sure enough, you gave away a lot of guys that might not have really done much for you, but you also gave up, like you said, 3 unprotected picks over the next 5 years. To me, that is not a smart move at all. Now, you also bring in a Rudy Gobert to play alongside Karl Anthony Towns. While that sounds good, to maybe the novice fan, that sounds good because you're bringing in 2 all-stars, 2 guys that produce this and that. But their games are so different and they produce in such different ways to where in crunch time, you're not going to see them together. So what's the point? It's, to me, there's just so many things about this move that make me scratch my head. I get it from Utah's standpoint, because Utah was ready to blow everything up. We're going to get to the whole coaching change there as well, but Utah was ready to blow things up, and I understand that. But to me, honestly, I feel like Utah came out on top of this because you had the issues, and these rumors started right, 2 years ago when, the whole COVID breakout started and everything got shut down in the NBA. There were the talks of the issues between Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and
Rudy started the pandemic, right?
of course. I mean, how dare you touch those microphones? It's says everybody that got their medical degree off WebMD.
He really is the defensive player of the year. He literally shut down the entire league.
There you go, man. And that's, like I said, I mean, shout out to everybody that got their, medical degrees off WebMD. It I tried to do that with a straight face. I'm sorry, I failed. But that whole thing, we knew it was coming, but to me, shipping him off, and I mean, Utah clearly won it. I'll say that again. But in Minnesota's case, it's just super questionable for me, because you bring in a guy who is definitely a dynamo on one end of the floor, but he's not going to give you much on the other one. And that's immediately going to lead to issues with, roster moves and this and that. I feel like Minnesota is another team that's, even though you just brought in somebody like a Rudy Gobert, who, let's also keep in mind, is already 30 years old. Yeah. You bring in a defensive talent, but who in NBA, lingo, is already an older defensive talent. There's just so many question marks. And while I do feel like any team that adds Rudy Gobert will get better, it's not championship better. And if it's not championship better, then that big question is why. So I'm just questionable is where I'm sitting with on this one.
Yeah, man. Because me and James thought of the same word, I'm just gonna go with unorthodox. It's like,
for what it's worth, can I say, I do want to point out again, guys, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I do want to point out, we did not discuss these words before we started recording. Believe it if you want.
Yeah, we didn't.
We did not. So again, even cooler, I love this dude. The fact that we got to this and actually landed on the exact same word. So dopeness.
Yeah, man. Like can't make this up. So with Rudy to the Wolves, man, I'm just gonna go with unorthodox. Like, I will disagree with you in terms of saying that the Jazz won this trade. They may have won it in terms of clearing cap space and acquiring some picks, but that's what you got for Rudy. That's what you got for your second best player. Like, that's pretty tough on Utah's side. Like, I would have tried to get at least like a good up and coming player, like a future, a guy that might be like he may masquerade as a foundational piece, like I would have loved to have seen them go out and do something like that. They just kind of said, you know what, we're just going to clear some room and add these guys on the cheap and acquire some picks, which, Minnesota hasn't been a very good team. So those picks might be really good for Utah. So they won in that sense, but I feel like they could have got more if they were trying to build around Donovan Mitchell, which that's what they're saying. So
I think, yeah. And I think that's actually the next problem. And I think that could be something else that we could elaborate on. I think that while Utah had the right idea in mind, I don't think they had the right person in mind. And what I mean by that is you knew that you were going to have to get rid of one of them. So you immediately thought towards the future. But when you say you're thinking towards the future around the other, and in this case, Donovan Mitchell, you didn't go about it the right way, to where you're probably going to end up losing him too. And that's why I think that those picks are actually the smartest thing for them, because now you're going to need those to rebuild all together on some like San Antonio type stuff, because mark my words, I don't think that Spider's sticking around for this.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I already thought as soon as Dallas broke them and knocked them out the playoffs, that there needed to be a lot of changes there. Like I was saying, look, it's time to blow it up because they hadn't really accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. I mean, they had the best record in the West, not too long ago. Wasn't it last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the best record in the West, and it turned out to be a fluke because they ended up being out. So I was thinking, okay, move them both and see what you can get. Just blow it up. Now you're saying, okay, we're going to move Gobert. Obviously, he had a bigger contract, much bigger contract. But Donovan Mitchell's there. So you're saying, okay, we just traded our second best player, defensive player of the year, a guy that covered up all the defensive mistakes. And believe me, the list is long. He had to guard everybody. If y'all watch the playoffs, he had to guard everyone from Luka to Jalen Brunson to whoever. Like he was having to guard every single player on the floor at some point. And it's because Utah's defense was so piss poor. So you get rid of that guy. And if you're trying to retool around Donovan Mitchell, if that's what you want us to believe, then you don't go out and trade him for nothing and just draft picks, like guys that are unproven or just role players. You know, you're probably not going to keep Patrick Beverly, Malik Beasley. Okay. Walker Kessler might be a nice piece as a center that you could probably plug in, but I mean, big men usually take longer to develop in the league, so it might be 3-4 years before we figure out what Walker Kessler can do at the NBA level. So, like from Utah's standpoint, if you're trying to sell us on we're retooling around Donovan Mitchell, I feel like you needed a different kind of haul if you're trying to retool.
I think the whole we're retooling around Donovan Mitchell is a gimmick. And the reason that I say that is because look who's making all these moves in Utah. And what did that same dude do in Boston? Danny Ainge has a plan. Danny Ainge has a plan. And I don't, like I say, I don't think Utah's anywhere close to being finished yet.
And he specializes in these kind of rebuilds. Like he's presided over these teardowns to rebuild rosters. I mean, it's his calling card. It's his claim to fame. So, you know, but going back to Gobert in Minnesota, like I like it in that it was bold of Minnesota to go after Gobert and get a big fish. Granted, though, there's a lot of things that I'm wondering about. Like, for one, Gobert has a massive contract. He'll be 34 at the end of it. And I think he's going to make like $40 million or something by the end of it. And you just signed Karl Anthony Towns to a 4-year, $224 million extension. Like two of the top 3 centers to ever sign such a massive deal, and 2 of them on the same team. So I would sit there and look at it.
I would laugh. I would laugh if I wasn't so busy shaking my head.
Like the fit is questionable at best. It's unorthodox because you don't see a whole lot of teams saying, you know what, we're going to play 2 centers. Like you may get that in college, but not in the NBA. You know, I mean, you saw it a little bit with Cleveland. They played a very tall lineup. They went tall ball with Lauri Markkanen and Kevin Love, Evan Mobley. Like then you had Jared Allen there too. So they played a lot of those guys together, but it's also Cleveland. So, you know, they had some success and they looked like a playoff team at first, but you know, we'll talk about Cleveland at a different time. But Gobert and Towns, man, I think Gobert is still going to be doing a lot of the stuff he did in Utah. I think he's going to be covering up for a lot of people's mistakes. The question is, how does the defense work in terms of Cat, who's not known as a great defender? Gobert kind of helps mask some of Cat's deficiencies, but the problem is, unless Cat is about to lose a ton of weight and start guarding the perimeter, like they're gonna have issues in terms of teams that are more athletic, maybe giving them some issues. Now, James touched on this earlier about, Gobert is not going to be a guy that's going to be playing at the end of games typically. Now, granted, Utah was in a position where they had no choice. I mean, he was their best defender. Now, we still may see that because he's so good defensively. He can guard almost all 5 positions admirably. He has some matchups that he obviously, plays better in than others, but he's an all NBA, all world defender for a reason. So defensively, the fit isn't ideal. Offensively, he won't step on Cat's toes. I think Cat will probably turn into more of what he wants to be, which is he wants to be a face the basket 3-point shooter. He erroneously pointed out that he's the best shooting big man of all time, like Dirk Nowitzki was never born. Get out of here with that. But he's still a good player. He's still, an all-star caliber guy, and he can play. But if he wants to be more of a 3-point shooter and a guy that operates further from the basket, him and Gobert might play pretty well together. There won't be much overlap offensively. Now, Gobert will help them as far as a guy that can finish in the paint and rebound the ball and protect the rim. So it's a bold move for Minnesota. It's unorthodox. It's not ideal, but given the other guys that got on the roster, I mean, sometimes you just gotta acquire talent and see where it takes you. I think that's kind of how you sum up this deal.
It works for Minnesota because at this point, what they're dealing with, it's like I feel like both teams are in a position where it's like, what do we have to lose? Like neither one of those teams was really in a position where we're one move away from really being that squad. So it works on both sides. To me, it's just still questionable on Minnesota's side because, again, I say it's like clearly Utah's doing this with the mindset of they're trying to rebuild. Minnesota's making a move, picking up a guy of Gobert's caliber, thinking that that's going to immediately take them over the top. But based on what they just gave up for him, even though it wasn't that much, now what? Now they're in a position where what do you have left to try to build around your core of Gobert, Towns, D'Lo, and
like, is the team still going to have depth behind all that talent? Like the five is a really good group, but past that, we just got to see what they got after that.
That Boston problem that they're about to learn. That Boston problem, and you're in the West. So
it's not going to be any easier. Like, they made the playoffs this year, but like it's not going to get any easier. And I mean, talent wise, you could put that 5 against any team in the West. It's just I got to see it. I got to see it on the floor before I can make a definitive thing. It's just it's a weird kind of fit. It's very unorthodox, but it could be a gamble that possibly pays off or not. We'll see. But sticking with guys that were in Utah, we will shift our focus to Milwaukee. They acquired Joe Ingles. I think I probably won't even spend a whole lot of time with this just because I think it's such a good move. But Joe Ingles goes to Milwaukee, kind of to add some veteran presence to that team. A guy that's a high IQ, heady player that is coming off an injury. He tore an ACL. But James, I'll just let you talk about it. Joe Ingles to Milwaukee. What do you think?
Look, shoot, and you kind of touched on it already. So, I mean, I feel like this one is pretty easy from Milwaukee's standpoint, picking him up. My word for this move is smart. I don't see anything bad about this move at all. Ingles has never been a guy that you would expect to come out and take somebody off the dribble. He's never been that kind of guy that you're going to expect to be that tremendous, like that big body in the paint. He's a shooter, and shooters shoot. So from that standpoint, Milwaukee already knows exactly what they're getting. I think this was low key one of the smartest moves of the offseason. I mean, given the injury that he's dealing with, of course, for most players, it would be a devastating injury. But you also think about Joe Ingles, the way that he plays, his style of play. I think he's going to bounce back easily. I don't think it's going to be a problem because
Yeah, he was already slow. So I
yeah,
mean, he's
I
about to, he
mean,
might be a
there
little
you
bit
go.
slower. So yeah, it may
They
not hurt him too much.
right. So I don't think not only will it not hurt him, this is just going to boost Milwaukee up that much more. Because if you think about it, you look at Milwaukee's roster as it was before him. Chris Middleton likes to pull up from, mid to long, and Giannis is starting to develop that. But there's nobody on that roster that was really, really like, if we want to spread the floor, if we want to do this, these are our go-to guys. Joe Ingles immediately fills that mold. So this to me, and I kind of touched on it earlier when I was like, it depends on what Milwaukee and what Brooklyn do. This is big for Milwaukee because, like I said, offensively, it helps them spread the floor. And defensively, even though he's not the fastest, he's big. You want big
Yeah, you
guys on
forget
the
that Joe
end.
Ingles is 6'8".
Yeah, exactly. So he helps on both ends of the floor. So I think that smart. That's all I can say. Smart. I think Milwaukee was very smart with this pickup.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And my word for it, I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna break a rule. I'm gonna probably use the same word for another move.
You're
But
fired.
I'm gonna say shrewd. It's a very
You're
shrewd move for Milwaukee.
fired.
Yeah, man.
Oh, sorry.
Shout out to Mr. McMahon.
I told you, man, wrestling references all night.
But yeah, so I think it's very shrewd, especially when you think of Dante DiVincenzo moving on. From Sacramento, he played in Milwaukee. I think they needed a guy who has some size that can handle the ball some. Joe Ingles is 6'8", but I mean, he was an initiator in Utah. I mean, he would do a lot of the ball handling, before they had Mike Conley. So he was, in a lot of cases, he was a de facto point guard in Utah with that system. So as a ball handler, he gives you an extra guy that can do some stuff off the dribble. He's an elite shooter as a lefty. He is coming off an ACL. He was never known for athleticism or anything like that, but he's a high IQ player, a solid defender. He won't hurt you there. He's just a high IQ guy. I think you need on championship teams, everybody has to have a few of those guys. Yeah, high IQ guys. Like San Antonio doesn't win without, high IQ guys. Golden State doesn't win without high IQ guys. The Lakers, when they won in the bubble, high IQ guys. Like, it's a theme.
According to the haters, we didn't win in the bubble. That doesn't count.
So. It doesn't count, even though everybody had the same break and everything else. So for those of you that think that the bubble doesn't count, that's ridiculous.
That whole thing. It'd be just to shout out all the Laker haters. It'd be a totally different conversation if we got into the bubble and we lost. So
yeah, then y'all would be like, oh, LeBron, what did they do this time? And oh, Miami, y'all lost to Miami, like poverty Miami, really? Like, come on, like. Anybody is trying to put an asterisk on what was done in the bubble, like kick rocks. But anyway, like, for Milwaukee to go out and pick up Joe Ingles, man, it's a good pickup for them. I think it's very shrewd. I think it'll pay dividends, especially if he comes back and he's healthy and ready to play, which I think he will be. So moving on from that, let's go to Golden State. They've made a lot of moves, but they made one move and they had a lot of other people go elsewhere. So they lost Juan Toscano Anderson, Gary Payton II. They lost Damian Lee. Nemanja Bjelica and Otto Porter have all picked different teams. Bjelica said to hell with the NBA entirely. He's going back to Fenerbahce in Turkey, where he's played in the past. Gary Payton is headed off to Portland. Toscano Anderson is headed to the Lakers. Damian Lee is headed to Phoenix. And Otto Porter, where did Otto Porter end up?
Was it I know he went to the Atlantic. Oh man, where was it? Let me check real quick. He went somewhere out east.
It was definitely out east.
Let me see. Oh, that's gonna bother me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's bugging me right now.
It was just, I just had it here. Oh, that's gonna bother me. Hold on.
While James figures that out, man, like either way, they lost a guy that was playing like starter level minutes for them as one
Toronto,
of the
brother.
defenders. He's headed to Toronto.
He's a Raptor. I knew it was somewhere in the Northeast.
Yeah, so they lost 5 players from their championship team, but they did go out and they were able to acquire Dante DiVincenzo, former player from Villanova, was a contributor to the Milwaukee Bucks championship team, was in Sacramento last year after a trade, and now he's headed to Golden State. So we talked about the losses, but let's talk about the game. Dante DiVincenzo, what's the word?
You know what? I love Dante, so I don't even want to include Dante right now in my wrath, which, you know, so this word does not apply to him at all. I'm going to go with disrespect. What Golden State is doing right now just really boggles my mind. Now, Juan Toscano Anderson, no knock on JTA, but I mean, he did not really contribute to the postseason run. I mean, I understand that move, which we'll probably get into my rant about that as well in a minute. But when you look at Gary Payton II, you look at Nemanja Bjelica, you look at Otto Porter, what are you thinking, Golden State? What are you thinking? You're literally trying to turn yourselves into a version of you that would have lost to the Boston Celtics. The one thing that got you over the top was your bench depth. And in less than a week, you let it all go. I don't understand. So to me, I'm sticking with disrespect. I'm like, these guys balled out for you. Number one on that list, in my opinion, Gary Payton II. This man goes down with a fractured, I don't know what they called it, fractured, broken, whatever. He had an elbow that was not in one piece. He goes down because of a hard foul against Memphis in the second round. He misses all of this time, shows up to practices in a sling, can't even get out on the court with y'all, but he's in a sling running splints. Look, see, splint, broken, you know, sling, all of it fits together. That's how frustrated I am. And I'm not even a Golden State guy. That's how frustrated I am with it. But he's out here running sprints with his arm in a sling. Like, he's doing everything he can. I'm gonna stick to it. Of course, when you look at finals MVPs, you look at your Michael Jordans, you look at your Kobe Bryants, you look at LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, all of these guys, you look at a Dirk Nowitzki, you look at these guys that carry the load. But imagine how heavy that load would be if there wasn't a Jason Terry, if there wasn't a Pau Gasol, if there wasn't a Trevor Ariza, if there wasn't a, you know, Gary Payton and any of these other guys, Kerr. You know, Steve Kerr, you know, if you John Paxson, if you didn't have these guys that did these little things here or there, and you literally just let 3 of those guys walk. You let 3 of these guys walk, including one that busted his behind to come back from an injury in the same postseason. I don't get it. I'm interested to see where it goes, because right now, this to me, as weird as it may sound, is an even bigger head scratcher than the Utah and Minnesota situation. I don't get it. Who switches up a good thing? I understand some of these guys might have been commanding more money, but that's where the front office comes into play. This is where you have to work with these guys, and you have to run your magic and this and that. And I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, it just looking at, the move for DiVincenzo, like it's I'm gonna have another hyphen here. I'm just gonna say on brand. For Golden State, it's very on brand. Like, I mean, while it's not uncommon for championship teams to lose a lot of role players to other teams, especially after winning the title, I'll give Golden State a small pass just because their payroll is so bloated. Like, their payroll is astounding. So the luxury tax is not going to be kind to them because they're trying to keep that team together, and a lot of guys are making buku cash. So if I had the sound drop, I would hit the Ted DiBiase music. Money. Anyway,
some might cost a little.
Yeah, and you will be bought. So anyway, the payroll is massive, and Golden State lost a lot of key guys. I mean, like, JTA didn't play a whole lot, wasn't in the rotation. Damian Lee wasn't in the rotation. Bielitsa gave them spot minutes here and there, but he was in the rotation earlier in the year. But Otto Porter, losing Gary Payton II, that's 2 guys that contribute to one of the best defenses in the league. And both of those guys are gone. Porter's headed to Toronto. Gary Payton is headed to Portland. So, those losses are crazy. But with DiVincenzo, I say it's on brand because he's another guy that he plays both ends. He can score. He shoots a little bit. He can defend. He's a high IQ player. He showed that in Milwaukee. He was a contributor there. I think he'll do the same for Golden State. He'll make up for the loss of Gary Payton. I think that's his direct replacement. I think they need to find some more wings there, but I like the move. I like the move to get DiVincenzo. I've loved him since college. That's my guy. I was a huge fan of DiVincenzo coming out. So I think it's on brand for Golden State. I think it's even though they lost 5 guys from their championship team, adding a guy like Dante, I mean, he's a good pickup.
5 guys, no burger.
Yeah, 5 guys, no burger. And from one team that lost a bunch to another team that chose to, let one guy walk and sign a bunch of other guys. Let's talk, James. This is on you, about the Los Angeles Lakers. They let Malik Monk walk. They signed Juan Toscano Anderson, Troy Brown, Lonnie Walker IV, and Damian Jones. So, James, what's the word on the Lakers? James?
What?
What's the word on the Lakers, man? You still there?
Yep.
So what's the word?
Oh, you didn't hear it?
Well, I didn't catch it. What was that?
It was nothing. What the hell are we doing? I'm so sick. I'm so sick of the same routine in La La Land every
done it again
damn summer. This is one time that being predictable is absolutely awful. Why does this always happen? We we sit here and we'll bring in guys that give us solid contribution. In this case, I'm specifically talking Malik Monk. And what do we do to thank him? Dude literally says, hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut to stay with y'all. Less than a week later, he's gone.
You can't give a guy a pay cut if you weren't going to pay him in the first place.
I'm trying. Exactly. Right. Again. And it just makes him look, it makes us look even worse.
He said, I'm willing to take a pay cut. And the Lakers were like, who said we want you back? Okay, bye.
I don't even, this could legit be like an entire episode of me just venting about all of the things that my squad does poorly. Like we find diamonds in the rough that might not have thrived elsewhere, i.e. a Malik Monk. Malik was a solid player in Charlotte. He did what he did, but he just wasn't getting the PT that he needed. He comes here, he shines for us, does an exceptional job for us. The voices that he still wants to be here, and next thing you know, he's a queen. I said it. So now he's gone. We're sitting here again, twiddling our thumbs. No knock on the guys that we signed. I mean, we picked up, Juan Toscano Anderson from Golden State. We picked up Troy Brown, picked up Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker to me is low key a solid pickup. I mean, I've
kept gonna pay some dividends. I think.
Yeah, I've kept my eyes on Lonnie. I think Lonnie is a solid addition to the roster, and I think Damian Jones is going to be a solid addition to the roster. But here's my problem. You know what my problem is, Shane?
What's your problem?
He was already here. So again, the problems that I have is not only do we let the players go that give us contribution, then we turn around a couple of years later and suddenly want them back. The Lakers are basically that dude that dogs out a girl, and then once they see that girl doing better with another guy, they have a change of heart and want that girl back. That's what we've been doing.
The Lakers are basically Toxic Future.
There you go. It's ridiculous. and this is just the latest chapter of it. We could write an entire book off of this. I was telling you earlier, like, luckily it turned out well for us, but one of my biggest frustrating moments was when we decided to just say forget it when we had just won a title in 2009 and turn around and we're like, you know what? Ron Artest over there looking kind of good, bruh. And meanwhile, it's like that meme with the dude like looking at the one girl with the other girl behind him.
Yeah,
it's like the dude is the Lakers, like the girl that he's staring at is Ron Artest, and the girl that's behind him looking like what the heck is Trevor Ariza. That bothered me so much. We're gonna give up a younger guy that was a key contributor to us beating Orlando quite handily. If anybody was paying attention, we made quick work out of Orlando. And the first thing we do is we're like, let's look at Houston. You know what? Ron was giving Kobe some headaches. Let's bring him in. And then we're going to let Trevor go. Yeah, genius move. Luckily, it worked out. But again, it's little things like that just annoy me. And this is the latest edition of it. This was not the season that Laker fans would want to hang their hat on and say that we did too many things well. And the shining light to me of this season was Malik Monk. Clearly, it wasn't Talen Horton-Tucker, who we expected it to be. What happened? But guess what? He's still on the roster. Here we go. No knock on THT, but if I'm in the front office and I have to make a choice between the two, THT, let's go see how you work in Sacramento. Because after what Malik just gave us for the last season, there's no way I'm letting him walk. Absolutely not. Another one where Shane, I don't get it. I could rant on this for another hour and a half, but we've already been going for a minute, so I'm going to try to shut up. What do you have to explain what's going on?
I'm gonna just out and say it. Cheap. That's what it is. Some people like to say frugal. I'm gonna just say cheap. Like, yeah, all these dudes they added, like, I think will help them, especially Lonnie Walker, but it's just they added youth on the cheap, and I'm cool with that. They needed to get younger, but ultimately these dudes might be a throw-in. They're in the running for Kevin Durant. They're trying to get Kyrie Irving. These dudes might just be throw-ins to sweeten the pot. So I think it's cheap. I mean, it's smart of them to try and add some young guys for cheap, especially with the oldest roster in the league.
Right.
So, and they just had Westbrook opt in, which was smart on his part.
Absolutely. Kudos to him. Get your money.
Yeah. So it's cheap just because it's like, dude, you had Malik Monk. You could have retained him. He could have named his price and you told him to walk. I mean, we've seen this before. They didn't even offer Alex Caruso. They had Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee after they won in the bubble, and they both told those guys, man, thank you for helping us, but bye. They did bring Dwight back, which they should have kept him, because that was one of the deficiencies after they won the title, is they didn't have big man depth.
Like I said, man, wanting the X back.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just it's head scratching. I mean, Monk joins that long line of guys that have produced for the Lakers in recent years and became fan favorites, and then they get shipped out, or they don't get re-signed. So
the list of fan favorites that the Lakers have let go after that player shows out for them, that list alone is enough to contend.
Oh, it's lengthy. It's lengthy for sure. It is lengthy. That's all I got to say about LA. We got a couple more teams to get to here, and then we're going to talk about the coaches briefly. We're running short on time, so we'll start to wrap this up in a bit. A couple more moves here in free agency we want to talk about. This one I think is very under the radar. I don't think enough people are talking about it, but the Chicago Bulls, they went out. They did get Zach LaVine to re-sign there, max extension for him, but they went out and they made a couple low dollar moves that I think will help them massively, especially with the injuries they've had. So they went out, they got Andre Drummond, 2 years, $6 million. They got Goran Dragic, I think a 1 year deal worth about $3 million or something like that. And I think both those deals are huge for the Bulls, especially when they needed big man play, and they definitely needed some depth at point guard with Lonzo Ball getting hurt. So James, quickly with Chicago, what do you think of Andre Drummond and Goran Dragic?
Oh, this one is easy. It's all going to tie back to who they're trying to catch right now, and that's Boston. The first word that comes to mind here for me is depth. This is what Chicago needed. One of the things that failed Chicago throughout the season was when players started going out with injury. And once players started getting hurt, they started missing time. That's when we saw Chicago start to fall off.
The team just ran out of steam. You're right.
Yeah, Chicago spent the first half of the season as one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. And as soon as guys started getting hurt, then, it's almost one of those they are who we thought they were kind of situations. But Chicago is one of those teams where I feel like it wasn't all their fault. It was just a luck of the draw type thing where had they been a deeper team, they would have been able to stay afloat. So I think that bringing in a Goran Dragic, even though, I mean, granted, he's older, every team needs that veteran leadership. And I think that Dragic can play a pretty solid role in that aspect. But to me, the biggest move for them so far, outside of, of course, keeping Zach LaVine, is signing Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is one of those guys. To me, he's just a workhorse, man. He comes into work. He's gonna do what he has to do. You don't really hear stories in the media about Andre Drummond being that type of guy that's going to complain. He's not gonna go out here. He's not expecting to be that superstar. He just wants to play ball. So I think from that standpoint, he's going to fit right into that mold of what Chicago is trying to do. They need help, in the front court when it comes to guys that are just bullies, really, that just go out there and take what they want. So I think that Chicago they took some big steps in becoming that team that could possibly challenge one of those top spots. And I even hate to say challenge, because outside of injuries, it wouldn't have even been a challenge for them. They would have been right there in that conversation all season. So I just think that, when I say depth, this is going to ensure that they'll be in that conversation in March and April instead of falling off after January.
Yeah, and with Drummond and Dragic, the word for me is bargains. I mean, you got a guy that's led the league in rebounding, recently. I mean, when he was a full-time starter, this dude was leading the league in rebounds, Andre Drummond, and you're about to get him for $3 million a year.
Right.
Goran Dragic, even though he's older, can still put the ball in the basket and can still run a team. We're seeing that right now, just in the Eurobasket qualifiers. Like he's playing next to Luka Doncic, and he's the second leading scorer for Slovenia. So, Goran can still get it done, even though he's 36. Dallas was interested in Goran, and I think they're trying to get into the Kyrie or the KD sweepstakes. So he took advantage and signed with another team that's looking for a missing piece to contend. I think these moves are bargains. I think, with Lonzo getting hurt, you need another guy that's a steady hand that can come in and make a difference. I think Goran's a perfect pickup there. With Nikola Vucevic up there, you need a guy that can spell him, that can kind of hold things down when he's not out there. Obviously, Vucevic is probably one of the top 5 most skilled offensive centers in the league. Defensively, he's not great, but he's an elite rebounder, and he's one of the very best offensively in terms of what he can do on the floor. So having a guy like Andre Drummond who can come in and throw his weight around and rebound the ball, I think he's good, because you're asking him to come in and back up an all-star in Vucevic. So I think it filled some needs for them in terms of depth, like James said, and I think it's bargains. I think it was very, very smart move by Chicago to pick those guys up. And lastly, this one just happened yesterday. TJ Warren, former Indiana Pacer, former Phoenix Sun, he's headed to Brooklyn on a 1-year deal. We haven't seen TJ Warren since the bubble. He's only played in what 4 games. So, I mean, he's only been around for 4 games since he went off in the bubble, trying to get the Pacers into the playoffs. So he's 28 years old. He like I said, he's only played 4 games since the bubble, but in 2018 to 2020, he did shoot more than 40% from 3. So with that being said, James, TJ Warren to Brooklyn, what's the word?
My word that I'm going to go with here is flashback. And the reason I say that is because I think that that's what Brooklyn is hoping for. The bubble showed us, like, and this is why I'm gonna say it, and I'm sure we'll get into it at a later date, but everybody that wants to say that the bubble title doesn't count because there were no fans and this and that and all of that, I'm gonna argue the complete opposite. To me, the bubble championship was the hardest one to win because every single outlet that could have given a team an advantage was taken away.
That's true.
There was no crowd noise. There was no home court advantage. There's 15 guys getting on a neutral court and playing ball. And I think that that's probably where a lot of the TJ Warren lure still comes from. I'm not going to say that it's not there. Maybe it is, but it's been quite a while. I mean, that was 2 years ago. So maybe this is something that he can still give Brooklyn. Maybe not. Maybe Brooklyn knows that this isn't something that he can provide. And it's, possibly a bait scenario that, we can get into hopefully on the next episode. Hey, if you're here this long, make sure y'all keep listening. But maybe it's just something maybe he's being brought in for a reason other than what he'll do on the court for Brooklyn. That's all I'm gonna say. But I'm gonna say flashback because I think that Brooklyn bringing him in, just in my opinion, is kind of a fill out the roster type thing, and they're hoping that they'll catch glimpses of what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and my word for it is safe. I think it's only a 1-year deal. TJ Warren, prior to injury, he was a guy that could make a difference in terms of what he brought in with his shooting and his defense, things like that. Like he's a very good player. He used to give Dallas fits when he played for Phoenix. And he's been like I said, he shot around 40% from three from 2018 2020 before he got hurt. So I mean, this is a dude that can get it done if he's healthy. He just had issues with his foot, stress fractures, that kind of stuff is dangerous. But he's only 28 and he can if he's healthy, he can still contribute. I think it's a situation where they could possibly catch lightning in a bottle. I think it's safe. They're not investing a ton of money. We don't know what their team is going to look like. We don't know if Kyrie and KD will be there. We'll talk about that on a future episode of the JWJ podcast. But I think it's safe. They didn't take a whole lot of risk. He could potentially pay off for them if he's recovered from that foot injury. And the way he played in the bubble, he was awesome. He was one of the bright spots from that time. And, I think an underrated part of the bubble was the fact that when you took all those outside elements away, it was kind of like, okay, like everybody was kind of on the same level in terms of these are pros playing in an atmosphere where they ain't got to deal with fans. They don't have to deal with travel. Like everybody's in the same place. So you got more of a pure kind of, it was more of, it's like the best parts were filtered. So you could, everybody could see that, like everybody could play more free, guys that were already good were playing even better. And guys that were, kind of middle of the pack, they could kind of show what they could do. Look at Trey Burke. Trey Burke turned the bubble into, a couple seasons with the Mavericks. Like people thought Trey Burke was done. Like, I mean, he hadn't played much in a while. And he comes in with the Mavericks. He helped them win some games. He had a big game against Houston. And TJ Warren was one of the top stories in the bubble while the Pacers were
53.
Yeah. So I just think like it's just a safe move for them. And that I think for Brooklyn, with a lot of the uncertainty that's going on, they don't know what their team's going to look like. You just need to add a guy to the bench that could possibly step up and help swing a few games for you. And that TJ Warren's a nice pickup for them there. So we've run pretty long. I do want to get to the coaches. We'll talk about them here. We probably won't spend a ton of time, but the four I want to talk about, we got Mike Brown going to Sacramento. I didn't think Mike Brown would get another head coaching job, I'll be honest. We got Darvin Ham making his head coaching debut with the Lakers. And then we have Charlotte, which is a very interesting thing. They had an agreement from Kenny Atkinson, who used to coach the Nets and is the lead assistant in Golden State, or was one of the top assistants in Golden State behind Mike Brown. He backed out. He said, well, I just got a taste of this championship with the Warriors. I think I'm gonna go back and try to win more championships instead of going to be a head coach in Charlotte. So he backs out. And what does Michael Jordan do? Instead of going out and trying to get a Terry Stotts, Mike D'Antoni would have been a nice guy. He fired James Borrego after a winning season. And what do? They bring back Steve Clifford. Steve Clifford spent 5 years in Charlotte. He was 196 and 214. He did make the playoffs twice in his tenure. And most recently, he was the head coach of the Orlando Magic from 2018 to 2021. He was 96 and 131 with the Magic. So that, it seems lateral to me, and we'll discuss that briefly.
Lateral would imply that it's staying somewhat at the same level. I mean, you get rid of Borrego, going to Clifford, that ain't lateral. You're moving backwards. Like that. That's not a smart move at all. That's almost on the that's almost getting into the joke, man. It's like, hey, don't go into that burning building. Yeah, but I'm cold. That's pretty much what just happened here. And I don't understand it at all. I will say, though, for what it's worth, I think that given the way that Sacramento is going for this like upstart movement right now, I actually like the fact that Mike Brown is getting another chance. Because I feel like the reason that I think that this will work for Mike Brown is because if you look at some of the other like prime jobs that he's had, he spent some time coaching Kobe in LA. He spent time coaching LeBron in Cleveland. This is one of the few times where he's going to have an opportunity to coach somebody, or coach a team rather, where like the star player isn't really like that guy in the league yet. Yeah. So I think that a development project for Mike Brown is exactly what he needs. So I actually like Mike Brown going to Sacramento. And Darvin Ham with LA, the jury is still out, to be honest. It's a very young move. I am low-key bothered because I'm like, if you're so cool with bringing Darvin Ham in just off the bat and throwing him to the wolves like this, why didn't we keep Luke Walton? But that's a whole other discussion there. I'll get very annoyed again. And like I said, this is running long, so I don't want to hurt anybody tonight or your ears. But the Atkinson and Clifford thing, like I said, I feel like Clifford is honestly a step backward after you made it a point to fire Borrego. It doesn't make sense to me. And from the Atkinson standpoint of things, I kind of understand it. But I also think that part of him backing out and deciding to stick with Golden State, I feel like there's probably something under the radar with Golden State that we don't know. And I think that, like you said, that he was in succession, as far as lead role goes behind Mike Brown. I think that he was probably told something that caused him to change his mind and decide to stay in Cali. I think that somebody put a bug in his ear where even if it's not within the next 2, 3, 5 years, somebody probably let him know, hey, you stick it out here. And once Steve decides to hang it up, then we're going to, bump you up to that top spot. The only question I have with that, though, is if that's really what the franchise had in mind. You've already started off very inappropriately by letting so many of those young guns go on the roster. So I don't know. I don't. We'll see where that's gonna go. But to me, there's huge question marks.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was just the grass ain't always greener. I think that's what it is. I mean, you just got a chance to coach or be an assistant on the revival of the dynasty in Golden State. You're coaching the Finals MVP. You're coaching Klay Thompson. You're coaching Draymond Green. Like you're on a championship team. So like why walk away from a good thing? I think he looked at that and said, the grass ain't always green. Now, I would have liked him for Charlotte because we saw what he did in Brooklyn when he was the coach there. He was a guy that players could connect with, and with a young team, especially how young Brooklyn was, he was able to connect with that team and have some success. Now, unfortunately, his voice got stale there pretty quickly. But I think with a team that is talented and young, if you're able to connect and be successful, that says a lot about your character as a coach. I think he would have done a good job in Charlotte. Now, granted, one of the core members of Charlotte is an idiot and won't be in the fold because he wants to put his hands on women, but I won't even talk about that. I'm not going to touch on it.
No, we will definitely get our vent session in on that, but it's too late for it tonight.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But one of the coaching hires was Will Hardy, Boston Celtics assistant. He did spend 4 years under Greg Popovich as an assistant. He got a 5-year deal with Utah.
28% of the head coaches in the league are somehow connected to Greg Popovich at this point.
And Will Hardy will be the youngest head coach in the league.
Right.
He's 34 years old, and he'll be taking over in Utah. Now, I think another reason that I feel like Donovan Mitchell is gone is because he was only an assistant under Pop for 4 years. And he was in Boston under Ime Udoka, a former Spurs guy. Like, I just think a new coach like that, a young coach like that, like, it would be nice if you could get him a team with some guys, but Utah is in a full rebuild now. I think after giving Gobert away for nothing, and then, like, if I'm Donovan Mitchell, do I want to be a part of this rebuild? Like, he's still young enough to be a part of it, but do I really want to be there with this?
No. Definitely not. And I think an even bigger question, Shane, that I got to ask. Coach Hardy is one thing. I could understand possibly, new leadership, getting used to this, but here's a bigger question for you, man. If I'm Donovan Mitchell, am I trying to sit around and wear those whack ass uniforms? That would offend me enough to want to walk out off top. It's bad enough. It's bad enough that we have a team in Utah called the Jazz that originated in New Orleans. I'm gonna let y'all marinate on why that is absolutely idiotic. Take the business aspect out of it. But I'm going to need y'all as soon as you can. And you know what? You know what I'm going to do for us, Shane? I think I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna have to throw together some shots and put them up on our IG page. Y'all make sure y'all go check that out. I think I'm gonna put
Follow
those
us
on
on
there.
IG at the JWJ podcast.
Like BM, but
Hideous,
I,
absolutely hideous. It
uh,
they
even
are
I feel
they
like even calling them hideous is a compliment.
yeah, I feel like there's not enough like tear downs that you could say about it. They're that bad. Like
The only I, I
it
feel like
may be the worst rebrand of a team in NBA history.
I feel like they might actually be more respectable if everybody just goes out there in their Nike, like, you know, like tank top, like, you know how they wear like the black tank, like the one D Wade used to wear, like the black tank top, the spandex looking tank top. Just go out there and rock those with like some random like practice shorts. That would probably look better than
They're
than
awful. They are the ugliest jerseys I've ever seen. Now, here's the thing that they did get right. They are bringing back the Purple Mountain uniforms. So that's one thing they did
one of the dopest Utah Jazz jerseys in franchise history. Easily.
Utah is one of those teams that for some reason they just feel like they need to change things that don't really need to be changed. It's like they've always had very like clean kind of classic uniforms. They've come out of the box with, you know, colors. Like they had the sky blue with the navy. They had that for a few years. Then they went back
I
to
didn't
their
have
roots.
too much of a problem with.
Yeah, so like they've had jerseys. Like I love the sunset, the Red Rock uniforms. I love those.
It took me a minute. I was cool with the uniform. I wasn't too fond of the court rendition. Yeah. I don't the jerseys were cool, but the court, I wasn't crazy about the court.
If you thought the sunset court was bad, whoo, wait till you see this BS they're about to put out this year. It is gonna be disgusting. It's highlighter yellow, it's black, and it is terrible. When I say it's bad,
calling it that is disrespectful to highlighters.
Oh my gosh. Like I can't even imagine what this new court is about to look like. Like I think they should have just said, you know, we're going to start with the Purple Mountains and build around that. But instead, they say we're going to have highlighter yellow jerseys that have nothing to do with the history of our team, the direction of our team. Well, it might have something to do with the direction of the team. All the highlighters are probably like all the people they wanted in trades.
They're gonna have to, or it could be they're gonna highlight all of the things that they did wrong.
Horrific, yes. Point. Like it's indicative. It's indicative of what they're doing to tear the roster down. Their coach stepped down because he saw the writing on the wall. They just traded their second best player for various bags of chips and draft picks, and Donovan Mitchell,
and a couple of them were Fritos.
A couple of them were Fritos. One was chili cheese, one was regular. But anyway, and then Donovan Mitchell is going to look at that, and I'm pretty sure he's just biding his time to get a trade. He's going to request a trade.
They haven't released pictures of Donovan Mitchell wearing them. There's a reason for that. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna go out there and say, you know, if anybody can get this to his ears, I want to shout out Charlemagne the God and the Breakfast Club, because we're actually gonna steal a quick segment from that, and I'm gonna say that whoever came up with the highlighter design of the new Utah Jazz uniforms, you get the donkey of the day. That's that. There you go. That award is yours. You can be proud, but you probably shouldn't be.
So with that being said, after talking about those terrible uniforms, like I like Mike Brown going to Sacramento. He's one retread guy. I don't mind. Like you said, he's coached stars. You know, he might be good. He's been in a very good environment with Golden State. So maybe some of that will rub off on
He's built
this new group in Sacramento that they're trying to foster and build up into something good. So
he's built a rapport in the league, and I think that respect goes a long way.
Yeah, and there's that whole Popovich connection. So
right.
And then Darvin Ham in LA, man. I think Luke Walton got a raw deal there. He should have still been the coach. He had improved their record in his time with the Lakers. They told him to get out of town. They sent him to Sacramento. Now he doesn't even have a head coaching job. Then they bring in Frank Vogel, wins him a title, and in true Laker fashion, they told him to go somewhere else this year. And then they bring in Darvin Ham, who doesn't even have head coaching experience in the NBA. Now he's paid his dues, and players like him. Shout out to Darvin Ham. I think he'll do well as long as he understands how to manage the talent that he has there, because there's a lot of ego there. There's a lot of guys that are going to need their touches and probably need their egos massaged a little bit. So I don't know if Darvin's that guy. I think he's probably going to be a little bit more hard-nosed and old school. I think he'll have the respect of the players, but that doesn't mean that they're going to run him over. I think it remains to be seen if he was the right decision there. He's got his work cut out for him the first year. So we'll see how Darvin does as the head coach of the Lake Show. But as we always say, if you guys have listened to this point, thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. This was our 8th episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Matter of fact, if you do follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, let us know. What did you think of our segment today? What did you think of What's the Word? I enjoyed it. It was something we wanted to try. I kicked it to James right before we got on here. So I think it was a good idea. You guys let us know what you think. We're open to feedback.
And give us your words. If you guys have other words that you think fit better than what we gave you, let us know. We're all about interaction.
Yeah, I'd love for you guys to get involved, man. Interact with us, weigh in on the conversation, because that's what this podcast wants to foster. That's what we want. We want conversation. We want interaction. It's not just us talking about it. We want to know what you guys think. We want you guys to share your opinions with us. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you guys want to follow us, you can follow us at the JWJ Podcast. You can follow us personally on our socials. You can follow me on Instagram at It's a Thomas Thing. Same thing for Twitter. You can follow James at Titletown's Mayor. That's TitleTownzMayor. You can find him on Instagram and Twitter
as well. Yes, sir.
And also, if you want to listen to us, you can find us on Anchor, and you can find us on Spotify. We need to get our listens up. So you guys, if you like what you heard, share with your friends. Let them know about JWJ, because we got plenty more coming. We plan on breaking down. Everybody's heard about it now. KD, Kyrie, they both want out in Brooklyn. Should Brooklyn accommodate them, or should they tell them to suck it up and not give them the leverage? I will share my opinions on that in the next episode, as will James.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we got a lot of things to say. I think we'll spend the bulk of our 9th episode on that. So yes. We look forward to hearing what you guys have to say about that episode once we put it out, and see what you guys think of that conversation, because we got a lot we want to say about that.
Yes, the two of them, they deserve their own episode. I'm sure that everybody was listening had questions. Why didn't we mention the two of them? We mentioned moves that had already actually taken place, and we purposely left them out because we plan on dedicating an entire episode to them. They need it, because
basically free agency, even though it's been wild and it's a frenzy and it's mania, like, everybody's on hold now.
Yeah.
Everybody is waiting to see if Brooklyn is willing to trade these guys out, right, and what the asking price is going to be. Teams are literally holding off on people they want to sign, because they don't know if they need to free up space to bring guys in, if we need to ship out assets to bring these guys in, like what it's going to be. Like it's the same thing when KD was deciding on the Warriors or not. Like it's literally the same thing. So, you know, we'll talk about, you know, how it's gone in Brooklyn. How do we get to this point? You know, why would these guys want out? Things like that. And we'll get to that in episode 9. But again, thank you guys for listening. We're grateful to have you. Grateful to have this great game to talk about. And let us know, again, let us know what you thought of this episode. Let us know if you want to see more or listen to more segments of What's the Word? Because I thought it was a pretty good idea. So
absolutely.
Again, you know where to find us. Continue to listen. We appreciate you. And James, anything else you want to add?
Oh man, I mean, just pretty much everything you've said so far. I mean, everybody that's made it to this point, this is definitely one of our longer episodes, I feel like. But I mean, a lot of thought and a lot of love went into it. I mean, I'm gonna say shout out to you, Shane, for, you know, the What's the Word idea. I think that was an awesome idea, and I feel like personally it went really well. So shout out to you for that. I mean, that's really cool. We'll definitely build on that. You know, we're still in the early stages, so we'll come up with new ideas and this and that. But I have a gut feeling that What's the Word is going to stick around. I think that's something that I had a lot of fun with personally. So I look forward to doing more of that. Other than that, I just want to take the time to thank everyone that's listening. I mean, Shane kind of touched on that, but he appreciates you. I appreciate you. You know, as JWJ, we appreciate you. So if you are still here and you're still listening, we just want to say thank you. And we just want to say that we hope you guys enjoyed episode 8. We hope that you come back for episode 9. And we just want to, at the end of the day, thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for tuning in to the JWJ podcast.
See y'all tomorrow.